I will kick off this session. This is going to be a panel of experts. This is a unique experience because what you have here is experts that represent all aspects of the digital signage industry. Not just technology, not just products, but advertising, content, distribution, display, all aspects of digital signage. My name is Gary Kayye, and I am the moderator of this panel. I own a publication that started in 2003, and we report on trends in digital signage and products in the digital signage market. Our publication is called RAVE, R-A-V-E, R-A-V-E, RavePubs, Pubs.com. And this session is being recorded and will be put on our website. If you have people in your office who may have missed this session, they can watch it again. And I'm sure it will be linked from the AOpen website as well for this forum so that you'll have a chance to watch the session again. So we only have 1 hour. So I want to jump right into it, and I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to pass that microphone down and spend a minute or two introducing themselves, and then we'll open it up for questions. Go ahead.
Hi. Oh, that was close. Hi, I'm Dan Parisian. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Strategy for BroadSign International. So we're the leading digital signage software provider, software as a service for ad-based networks worldwide. We're in about 55 countries and have quite a bit of installations, including the largest ad network in the world, which is Accent Health in the United States, and the largest ad-based digital provider, if you will, in the world, which is JC2Co worldwide. So yeah, hopefully I can help answer some of you guys' questions.
Thank you. I'm Vladimir Aubin from Blue Fox Company, and I am the business developer Europe, and I am in charge of developing the business and to find new partnerships throughout Europe. The company has the job to find content and to aggregate content to the final customers to make sure that they have a relevant loop on their screen in a retail environment and so on.
Hello, I'm Olivier Duisabou from KVD. We offer an audience measurement solution for the digital signage industry and retail sector as well. So we measure screens basically, and we provide insight as to how many viewers and the demographics and trends that can help make informed decisions on that. And we have customers in 35 countries.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Keith Platt. I'm the Director and Research Fellow at the Platt Retail Institute. We specialize in helping technology companies and retailers deploy and understand the impact of customer-facing technologies. As well, we work with European companies that are seeking to establish their businesses in North America.
Stephen Borg, Director of Strategy for the AOpen Group. I guess you guys all understand what we do, so I'll give more time to our partners.
Hi, Gesina Routers, co-founder and creative director of Day Creative Business Partners. We are a thing between a brand design agency and interior design agency. And we develop lots of retail internationally. We have agency in Amsterdam and in Dubai.
My name is Bjorn Pieper. I'm from Net Display Systems, responsible for the business development of EMEA and APAC. We are a software manufacturing company, and we focus on the ability of integrating the real-time information from your cash register systems, your wayfinding systems, your gold cards into your digital signage environment, providing a turnkey communication system.
Hello, my name is Maarten Struijs. I work for Microsoft as part of the technology manager for Windows Embedded, and we enable you to be successful in digital signage with our operating systems, both for server and client.
Good afternoon. My name is Stefan Mengera, and I'm the Vice President of Advanced Analytics at Scala. So I'm responsible for bringing analytics together with digital signage, and Scala is a global leader for digital signage software. So we are going into our 26th year. So we have been on the block for quite some time now.
Hi, my name is Stevan Dragas. I'm ecosystem manager for EMEA. I work in Intel Intelligent Solutions Group. intelligence comes from the point that we wanted to drive components that we could scale through OEMs, through ISVs, through system integrators, but providing them fast time to market, which could then apply to all the devices that are utilizing services and that are integrated in Intel processors, on the same time providing components that number of companies also integrate in order to drive the analytics through audience detection.
Hi, my name is Huib Lubbers. I'm the director of Retail Management Center. It's a consultancy firm. We are ex-retailers going into the consultancy, so that's quite difficult. And we are 10 people in Holland, and we try to be coaches for retailers and non-retailers.
So we have, as you can see, we have truly every element of digital signage represented here. And for those of you who feel like you have very long sales cycles, because this market is obviously one that has a long sales cycle. Before the session started, I was talking, actually JC Deco, I believe you said that sales cycle took you 8 years, is that correct? So for those of you who think you have a long sales cycle, imagine an 8-year sales cycle for that sale. So even though that is the world's largest digital signage managed network right now, that did take 8 years to actually pull off. So it's not something you can do overnight. I'd like to ask, Stephen, if you'll take the mic, I'd like to seed you with the first question, because your firm is responsible for sort of keeping up with what's going on in the industry right now and sort of where it's headed. And if I could sort of ask you generically, what should we be looking for over the next couple of years? What are the key things, the key changes or key impacts that are key things that are having an impact in the digital signage world, whether it be from technology or is it from adoption, or is it because of the economy changing the way people do retail? What is it that we need to be looking for?
Sure. Thank you, Gary. In terms of digital signage, and maybe there's a bit of a repeat of what I discussed earlier, but we see adoption increasing dramatically this year and next in retail, particularly in North America. I think Europe's going to be a little slower for obvious reasons. I also think it's critical for people to start to think about digital signage as part of an omni-channel solution and be able to talk about integrating all the other technology platforms, because people are going to not really view retailers specifically digital signage as a standalone platform. They want to know, how is this going to help me embrace and communicate a consistent brand and consistent message to my customers?
I'd like to sort of ask you to kind of follow up on that, because of where you've coming from, being a customer and now helping drive that market on the retail side. Would you add anything to that?
The added value of digital signage, it has a lot to do about the amount of people who are using it, and especially the customers. So if customers are using it and it's relevant for their shopping environment and their shopping experience, a lot of people are using it. So the last 10 years we are coaching or accompanying a lot of projects, but in Holland, and especially in Holland, we have tried a lot of projects, but the most important thing is if the investment, and the investments are quite high, will be adapted and will be continued if the amount of people who are using it or seems to see the added value of digital signage will use it and will prosper in the future, that the new digital signage projects will really be effective in the shopping environment. So like Mr. Platt is saying, that the same thing about the added value, the omni-channel, one-to-one marketing, you can do things in your shop and you can see it on your iPhone, you can see it on your tablet. So that's going to be more effective for the shopping environment.
So people using it, the more they see using it, the more adoption, then obviously it's sort of inertia. It just keeps on rolling.
Exactly. If you find it relevant, and it's relevant for you, not especially for the shopper or for the retailer, but it's especially relevant for yourself as a shopper, then you will gonna use it. And how many, if more people are using it, if it's a screen or if it's an interface, then it will be adapted in the retail process of the retailer.
Right. If you're a hardware manufacturer and you make large screen displays, then you think, well, the bigger I make the display, that's just going to be more effective. But doesn't content and the creative content have a huge part to play in it?
Exactly, thank you. I think the challenge really is to develop content which is not only informative right, but also looks right and brings the right message over to the viewer. And here I see lots of retailers who don't know how to handle this kind of content. And when we do a job and a retailer says, make store, and I want to have screens and I want to have interaction, and innovative content, and then they don't realize how much work it takes to fill the content and to keep up, I agree with you, to keep it updated. And there it goes often wrong. It's not about the product or the interfaces, it's, there is a big problem.
Right, and it's one thing to develop a print ad or a television ad that drives an emotional response, or is interesting to look at, but once you've seen it once or twice, you don't want to see the same thing again. So it's truly dynamic. I mean, it has to change all the time. So the content changing really, the content creation has to be almost a continuous process, doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right?
Yeah, that's a change of thinking what has to happen. And I see it slowly starts to happen. But I once read that once if you're aware you should change something, it takes you 20 years. Right. So it'll take a while.
Yeah, so one of the problems is the agency, right? I mean, in the traditional ad agency world, there isn't a great amount of creativity being driven towards digital signage. It's all still traditional television, print, media, correct?
No, I think it's more in the marketing departments of the retailer.
Okay.
There's a problem.
Okay, so the issue is getting to the retailer and getting them to be more creative.
Yeah, and then they want it, and if they start to realize that they have to do something for it, and the integration of all the 3 screens and everything, then they are like, oh my God, money and complicated systems, and they don't dare.
Okay.
Maybe just to add to that, from Intel's perspective, over the last 3-4 years, as Intelligent Systems Division, we have become thought leadership in the retail space. And one of the things that I would like to add to that is it's not necessarily just the content. In the whole omni-channel environment, it's actually the experience of the consumer, experience of the seamless integration of the whole content, and how your message is actually being transferred and adopted to different size of screens, to different type of devices that are in the environment. And that's where Intel comes in with all kind of devices to help OEMs to come and design the technology in those devices with the AIM suite, which is for anonymous detection of the audience, so that decision-making, the type of content, can be dynamic and in real time can actually be adopted and put as most relevant to the audience that is detected in the proximity of the signage, of the screen, vending machine, kiosk, or whatever device based on the technology that has those capabilities is.
Yeah, content has to be relevant, obviously, but it has to be shown at the right place, at the right moment, to the right people. And to make sure the message is relevant, this is a combination of plenty of stuff. Installation, obviously, the screens, obviously, but the content is key. And also the return on invest. This is something we've just talked a little bit about, but you will not find any final customer if you don't know how to give them the amount of return, the time of return on invest on their installation. Otherwise, they will never invest.
Good point. Very good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me add to that. And you mentioned a good point. You said, okay, you touched already on measurements, and you also, it's the right message at the right time at the right location, and it starts with obviously the creative process that you start there, but you need to have a feedback loop in there. You need to be able to measure how effective is it, what happens, whatever your goals are to sell more, to increase basket size, etc. You need to measure this and then go back and say what I just did on the creative side and also on the technology side, from a screen size and screen location, line of sight and so on. Is that effective or not? And it's an iterative process to improve the effectiveness. Only then we can move forward, and only then, in the end, will people continue investing in that medium.
Right, and that's really, I mean, that's Scala, you said, has been doing this for over 20 years. That means it's before the word digital signage was even being used, you were sort of doing that.
Yes, Scala has been over 20 years in the digital signage field, but to bring this analytics, to use the buzzword, into that field, that's more recent. Because also computer technology has grown that it's now really feasible for normal companies and normal people without having a big crazy supercomputer somewhere in the back to do this. In particular, cloud computing plays a big role there.
Right, and speaking of which, there are small digital signage applications that obviously can't maybe afford the high-end analytic options that are maybe available from large systems. What would you suggest for smaller applications?
Well, I wouldn't say that they can't afford the high-end analytics options. The key point is that it's now broken down into smaller parcels. They can have the same algorithm, the same high sophisticated access to the same sophisticated algorithm that the companies have zillions of dollars. But the point is that you can buy these services, software as a service, analytics as a service, and put this now together with digital signage. And that way, your total cost of ownership is low enough that pretty much everybody can afford that.
Right. We have another comment?
Yes, and actually, it's important to have a purpose. When you measure, you could easily be swamped by data. So you have to plan ahead what you do with the data, have a methodology saying I measure A and B, I change one element, then I compare, then I try again, then I move locations or content, etc. And in terms of affordability, it's very common that you start by sampling a few screens. So even with a few units or tens of units, you start having a good understanding of how your audience reacts and what are the trends. But even large deployments across the board, we do have customers that are deploying on 100% of their screens, and the cost is a few tens euros per year, and this does have a very clear ROI. So we believe that measurement is going to become commonplace in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and speaking of sort of commonplace, I mean, certainly Windows, you could argue, is probably the most commonplace product integration out there. I mean, I assume you're looking at all different levels.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And from an embedded point of view, I mean, Windows is there, and it's very important that you can run it on, like a multitude of a number of different screen sizes, and using the same development tools over all those different form factors for digital signage. So just by using one set of tools, you can address a large number of devices, meaning your time to market or your change in a campaign or something can go very, very fast there.
That's a really good point, because this is what used to take 10 times as long just 2 years ago is significantly shortened by the technology. The hardware technology is really driven, and the software integration is really driven that time down.
That's absolutely true. And what I also like a lot, and actually today that happened as well, is that we are talking more not just from a technological point of view, but also with designers and working together. And actually Windows is enabling that as well.
Yeah. So I'd like the opportunity to open up, before I seed another question here, for anybody in the audience that may have a specific application or idea they'd like to get addressed.
Wie van Gelder op NetDisplay Systems. I have a question for Microsoft. You just said Windows Embedded. The problem is I never can buy Windows Embedded without a piece of hardware. So I cannot go to a AOpen, Intel or other company and say I want a player, just the Windows Embedded on top of it. I want to put on top of that my software. So it is impossible, as far as I know, that I can buy the combination hardware plus Windows Embedded from an independent vendor. I hope I'm wrong.
Let me rephrase, or let me absolutely make sure that I understand the question. So you're saying it's not possible for you to purchase Windows Embedded separate from hardware? Is that your? It's not possible to get it included.
I cannot go to AOpen or to Intel and buy the next unit of computing, including Windows Embedded.
Well, it depends on the partner who ships the hardware if they come with a version of Windows Embedded installed on it.
So can I maybe add, if you miss partners in the ecosystem, as I work for Intel, let's after this session have another, and I'll give you a full list of the companies where you can get hardware with the software.
It was nice to have Intel, Microsoft, and AOpen together. To solve the problem, you can't solve the problem. Well, he's willing to sell you something that solves the problem.
It's a disaster. You have to
Go ahead, hold on. Can you repeat?
You have to make versions for each of our 125 partners to get this thing sold. So there's no, if I want AOpen in South Africa, it's not there. If I want Intel over there, it is not there. You cannot get it with Windows embedded. If I use Windows X, now it is Windows 8, I can use it at all. But Windows 7, if I want to use that, I get all kind of pop-up screens and all kind of misery things. If I want to use as digital signage player. So all my partners have to adjust Windows to enable them to run our software. And that's my major problem in the market. So if I want is good TCO and win the business from Scala, that's because he's my enemy in the market. Yeah, I need that. And we sold last year over 25,000 players, and we all have the same problem, install again.
Yeah. I'm coming, and probably we should take it indeed offline later on, but maybe we should get these people indeed together, you know, like at beer. I'm not sure about that one. But anyway, I'm coming back to my original answer. You know, like, it is up to partners to, yes or no, sell their product together with an operating system or without an operating system. The other thing you could do, but then of course I understand it's not your core business, but you could purchase the hardware, put the operating system on it yourself. If it would be an embedded version of the operating system, because that's typically where the challenge is. A Windows embedded operating system might be different for each and everybody of you. You know, like it depends on the features you want to have in that operating system, what that particular solution is going to be, and also the hardware manufacturer is not sure what kind of a solution or what kind of a, you know, like version you want to run of that particular Windows embedded operating system, because it's componentized, right?
But he will change his hardware every year, and they will do the same. Sorry. AOpen will change the hardware, the new version. I have to make a new one. Intel makes a new version. I have to make a new one. HP the same. So I always have to make new embedded version. And they come with a hardware platform and a basic operating system on top of it as one unit that we can buy and use. Then we have solved the major problem for mine.
So from Intel's perspective, we have embedded product line and we guarantee minimum 7 years availability. Is that long enough?
So,
shall we purchase it from the first year for the next 7 years? Perhaps not so okay, yeah?
Go ahead.
I guess from our perspective, we tend to, I do know we do this in Europe as well, that we do create baseline images that we allow for access. So you shouldn't have to create that baseline yourself, but then it comes down to the specific features you want, because embedded is very tailored. So we do tend, I know we do this in the US, we create a baseline image with some partners, and that's got the full kernel, and then you can decide what you take from there. So that's how we manage to update with technology, not keep it back. And sometimes it's not always the best idea to be 7 years down the track, because there's other things you can't get. You may be able to get the CPU, but there's other things you can't get. So we allow, what we do is when we roll out a platform, we tend to create multiple images for that for our reference partners. So you should be able to access those images.
I have a comment. I think something you're talking about is a symptom of a bigger problem in the industry. And although we're kind of competitors at a greater scale, if you think about, you know, not our individual problems, the space in general, we have a standardization problem, and it's what it leads to is these types of frustrations, and you can't just go out there and get a digital sign. It's not possible. And to the content problem we were talking about earlier, there's no way for a content provider or even an analytics provider to create a platform on top of a standard. It doesn't exist. You can't create these content publishing systems without doing multiple levels of integration. So just from a technical standpoint, which leads to problems in all the other fields, because there's a lack of standardization, we can't just go out there and have like an agency like Kinetic develop an ad campaign that's going to run on all the platforms. We have a problem of a heterogeneous, we call it, multicultural type setup. So we have this integration problem, and to a similar point is, if you just want to have a unit that works, you have to go through all this work. Well, if that's your problem, your customer has even more of a challenge, because then there are 7 other aspects. We're talking about, we have this cross-disciplinary panel here. You have to find an internet provider, you have to find a hardware provider, screen provider, content provider, multiple content providers oftentimes, software providers. So that's something that I think the industry has to look at as a real problem and how to solve it. And is it software companies working together to develop standards? That's something we're working on in North America. I'm part of the technology committee at the DPAA to try and develop standards for that. But there's other standards we could develop, and I think AOpen and their ecosystem concept and their platform concept is a big step towards that. Often, in crossing the chasm and that whole description of the evolution of an industry, we're kind of at that. Passing the early adopter to the early majority, and usually the big indicator, the big switch there is having somebody who has an ecosystem, developing a full solution where you could go to one place and get everything simply with this, multiple times repeatable process. And we're getting there. I think this, in 2013, 2014, 2015, we're going to see that emerging, and that's.
Yeah, and we're at the beginning of, still, we may think the industry, for those of us who've been in it for a while, is a mature industry, but it's at the very beginning. In fact, there's still a lot of parts of the industry that don't even recognize the term digital signage, much less standardization. So yeah, your point about AOpen, and that's a key partner. That's why you're all here. That's really the best place to start. That's where I would recommend that you start, because they're going to put you together with the right people. Another point, we have a question back here in the back, and I'm going to run to the back and let him ask a question. I'll bring the mic back.
Thank you. I just would like to comment the situation on the Microsoft licensing problem and your standardization that you try to see improved. The point is that since Microsoft has changed the licensing on the Windows 7 embedded, it is impossible that a company like AOpen would be able to provide a pre-installed image on their hardware. So you have to be a partner of Microsoft, then you get a licensing number just for your company. And later on, Microsoft is monitoring how much licenses you buy, and if the images are spread illegally, you're going to be zapped. So how will Microsoft then be able to control the number of licenses that have been sold by AOpen? Because they sell it to everybody. They won't find out who in this room has been cheating.
Microsoft made us put a camera in this room so we can monitor who makes comments about... Now, the point is well made, and I think it's an issue that has to be worked out, and short of switching to the iOS operating system or Google Chrome or something like that, then obviously it's going to be something that's going to have to be worked on. How about another question regarding the digital signage market?
Hi, Nico Collin from Mermid in Denmark. As one of the large players in our market, one of the challenges I think that we have today is that we have been talking about retail all day today, and retailers are expecting more and more from us suppliers. And of course, that's a normal evolution in every business. One of the things that I see as the major challenge today is that we miss in Europe something like DPAA, where I understand that they are kind of gathering a lot of retail information which then the members can use. OVAP is not doing the same thing today. And do you have any thoughts on that? What we could actually do so the knowledge that is in a lot of these people sitting here could come better towards the suppliers of the solutions.
Yeah, actually, we have a couple of people who want to address that. Sure.
Actually, DPA does have an international chapter, and if there's a willingness to get together and form a DPA-like group, I mean, OVAB Europe does exist, and yeah, it needs a lot more energy to start getting some traction. I say we do it. I mean, I think there's enough people in this room and at the show over the next few days that have a willingness to do it. And you know, I have direct access. If anybody wants to come talk to me, I have direct access to the board of directors there, and we'll be able to start organizing something and, you know, renew a little bit of energy in the European space. I think it's highly needed.
Good. That's a great question. The DPAA in the States is not nearly as organized, I believe, as you may think. And we do metrics for a living. For example, we publish the North American Digital Signage Index every quarter. We publish the Journal of Retail Analytics every quarter. We're going to introduce next quarter the Digital Place-Based Advertising Index in North America. And some trade associations have approached us, but the bottom line is you guys aren't willing to pay for it. You want the information, but you don't want to pay for it. So we've been approached often. You know, we want to know what the player market is in Denmark and how big. Everybody wants to know, but nobody wants to pay for it. And that's the problem.
We have a collection plate in the back. We're going to start.
Robert can make change. He's right behind you.
No, it is an issue, and this is not the first time I've heard this in the last couple of years over here at ISE.
But maybe it starts also with the retailers themselves. I mean, they don't change or interact information by themselves. So they're very keen on their shopping traffic, conversion rates, capture rates. They keep them very much to themselves. They're very, very keen on their own information, and they're very scary about deliver or to share the information. So you get the information which will be shared is how large is the facade or something else, which is not very relevant, but they can share that, you can see it yourself. So the basic problem is also that retailers themselves don't share a lot of information, like the manufacturing industry or even the trade industry is sharing a lot more information than the retailers themselves. They stick and sit on their information, and they only share if it will be in their added value. And what we see is that they start projects where they can share their information. We get a lot of information of retailers, which we didn't get them 3 years ago. We get them now to help them analyze, and we're really coaching them to analyze because they sit on an enormous amount of data, and they don't do anything with it. So we help them to analyze the data, so they see it's going to be relevant, and they can take their management decisions to change and to cut cost or something else, or to do to get some other investment. So it also has a lot to do with the retailers themselves.
Maybe just to add to that, on the other hand, question back to you. How many of you have actually seen and worked with retailers who actually built in such a silos that retailers' own brick and mortar business does not actually collaborate with their own online business? So that's also kind of retailers' own problem that we as industry needing to address too.
Yeah, it's sort of ironic that they have all this data, but they're not exactly sure how to mine the data, how to get the information out of the data.
I definitely see a big movement in the market at this moment. They are aware of that, and they are aware of the position of their brick and mortar stores, as you are saying, and they know they have to integrate, and they know they have to integrate the data as well. So, and I see that going on at several retailers at the moment.
So, other questions? Let me go back here.
Yeah, my question is maybe changing the tactic a little bit. So from the panel, if you were to place your next 5 years' profits or revenue, which regions or parts of the business would you place your money on?
Regions as in geographical regions?
Well,
or
countries, because,
market?
you know, no disrespect to North America. I work for a North American company and they're fantastic. But North America's one country. Two countries, you can't Canada, right? Because Canada might get upset if I class them the same as America. But Europe's, at the last count, over 100, and if you actually depend where you look at, if you count EMEA, counting Africa and counting the Middle East, it's around about 120 different countries.
Right.
So you've got business models, cultures. So looking at that diversity, the question to the panel is, if you were to place your bet on where you think your biggest growth opportunity is going to come for as a business, each of you individually, where would that be?
Who wants to start with that question?
High level. I think there's some unique opportunities in Europe right now, but we're seeing a lot of growth in Southeast Asia and Brazil, South America, Chile. We see them adopting the technology at a very fast rate, probably because they don't have the legacy of an old infrastructure. So they're putting in infrastructure now that is, they start at 4G or they start at broadband. So they don't have the legacy of copper and the legacy of that old technology to drive digital. So we're finding that the adoption rates are very severe, if I can put it that way.
Anyone else?
Our biggest business happens to be in Asia, and for the sheer size of the screen networks, I mean, they're speaking in terms of tens of thousands of screens. And they started with older technology like photo frames, now upgrading to built-in PCs, connected, and some of them, leapfrogging to some new technology. So for us, China is really where we have a big business actually at the moment.
We're making a big bet in Brazil, and I think that's probably not a very original answer, but Brazil, for us, has doubled in size in the last 12 months. We're expecting it to triple more in the next couple of years. So I think that's a place to look at. Obviously, the World Cup and the Olympics. China is a huge market. We're having incredible growth there. It doesn't even make sense how crazy the growth is in China right now. Not very original answers, but I think across the board, I forget what the expression is, like a tide, with the tide rising, all boats rise with the tide, or whatever the expression is. Basically, the entire market is growing in every single region. I mean, even here in Holland, we have pretty incredible growth. We're looking at probably 2,000 units over the next 18 months here alone, and I think Holland's, most people would consider it a relatively small market, but it's exploding. So I think we're all in a pretty good place, no matter where you are in the world.
And since China is buying the United States, it'll come back around. The U.S. will be a big market again.
As we only have 2 continents left, I would also, in next couple of years say that I think all the other continents, I mean, we have not touched Australia or Oceania. However, I would like to say that probably next 5 years, there'll be very significant growth also in Africa.
Other questions? No one else has a question out there. I'm impressed. You guys did a great job then. I have a question I'd like to ask. We talked a lot about, we've mostly focused on retail. I mean, if we were to sort of walk into a retail store that was really successful with digital signage 5 years from today, how would it look different than what the stores look like today? So 5 years from today, a store that has done a really good job of integrating digital signage into their store, what would that store look like?
Okay, I give it a try. Obviously, the danger is always if you want to foresee the future. But analytics try. So for those of you who have listened to the talk, predictive analytics, I think what we're going to see is much more interactivity. And really, I guess most of us know the Minority Report, the movie. Probably not as scary as that, but targeted messages to whoever I am with a opt-in version. So not that it's forced on me, but whatever is meaningful to me as a buyer, as a potential buyer. And that goes around from interactivity over kind of something I consume, so that is more passive, as we know digital signage right now. And then certainly mobile devices, because that's the bridge. I have my mobile device anywhere, and whatever the next evolutionary or revolutionary step from that point of view is.
I think to get a great example of a retailer today that's doing it right, just go to Media Mart or Saturn. Media Mart Saturn, 900 stores in the EU, over 200,000 digital screens carrying advertisements, kiosks all throughout the store, listening stations, swipe a CD, hear the music. A great example of a large retail that's really getting it right. I think that the future, definitely targeted messages, but I think retail is going to change fundamentally. That the retail store is going to be much more entertaining, much more community, much more social, and less merchandise, because I've already ordered it and I'm just picking it up there. So it'll be a showroom, and it'll have great big screens with fashion models, and you'll sit there and order what you want and they'll bring it out. But it's going to change fundamentally, because space will no longer matter. Where I buy it will no longer matter, and how I buy it will no longer matter.
I think to just call one answer, one example is the Apple Store. I think if you look into the interior of an Apple Store, it's very simple. Especially the digital signage is used in a very nice way, but the entrance, the shop, like itself, like the furnishment and the facade and the cash desk, it's very, very simple. So if you go back to it, if you look into the future and to say what a shop will look like, it will be smaller, definitely. The surface will be smaller, there will be less products, but there will be more people to help you out, which you cannot help, you cannot find the digital signage maybe on the internet or on your smartphone. So you need to have more people in your shop on per square meter to help people who will come in the store. So digital signage is relevant if it's going to be used in the process of shopping behavior. But the shopping behavior will be changed in a very slow way. So you take small steps in changing the shopping behavior, and that you will do by retailers who are really going to dig into formula development. So smaller shops with more people, and you need more digital signage. And Apple, I think, is one of a good example. They have about 200 or 300 people here in the Apple Store working on about 2,000 square meters.
Yeah, I totally agree. The shops in the future will be like showrooms, and they will display only the best sellers in showrooms. And also, I would like to say that the digital signage is today the fifth screen. You had the computer, you had the TV, you had the tablet and the smartphone, and now the digital signage is going to be the fifth screen. And this screen is going to be connected with all the other four, which means that basically you will have plenty of different point of entrance for the shopper to have a shopper experience through the digital.
Let me, as you're passing that down, we have a super creative here that this is what she does. And obviously Microsoft liked the design of the Apple Store because theirs look identical. And I don't know how many of you have watched the video, the Audi store in London. That's a great example of a future, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, a future way of buying cars. It opened up right before the Olympics in London, and that's where they sold cars out of a shop without any cars in the shop. So I'd like to get your opinion on this as well.
It's a very tricky question. And I'm just hearing all you to come up with an answer. And what I actually can imagine is that retail moves out of stores. What I said earlier today is that there may be completely different kind of places where you do your purchases in your car via your screen. And actually I have a little bit of problem with the word of digital signage, because what you do is digital information technologies. And that opens a whole world of places and spaces where you can go. What my colleague to my left also said is the places go smaller. So also Apple, great, and they did that thing and unbelievably, but they are a big chain, big stores, really expensive, and I also can imagine that in a couple of years that is completely different.
Sure. Well, I kind of see a different, I don't know, maybe a different way that we're going to be doing business and retail in the future. I think there are two important things. One is we're seeing the premier brands, the trend is premier brands are creating their own brick and mortar space because people will order their products online or they can pick them up in the store. It doesn't matter. There's no conflict there. That's why there's challenges with bigger box retailers like Target and those other ones that they feel like they're losing. They're basically the showcase for Amazon. People look at it in Target and then they go buy it at Amazon. So the trend now you're seeing is premier brand products are selling their products directly in their stores, and I think that's going to continue. Smaller spaces, more product display. But I think maybe I see a different vision of the future where, maybe the anthropomorphization, if you will, or the humanification of a store. You go to a store and your digital signage ends up just being one of the mouths or the hands, if you will, if you want to think of sign language, one of the communication vessels for a one-on-one conversation between the store and the individual, and it's going to be through analytics and the whole brain concept, similar to the video we saw that Intel showed, where all this analytics, all this different type of information from anonymous video analytics, so you can see who you're talking to the conditions outside, to the conditions in the store, to modeling certain stores based on other stores. All that type of information is going to allow the screen to have a meaningful conversation with the individual and help them choose the product they want. Similar to Siri on the iPhone. Siri is like a cloud service, but you're talking to an individual Siri, on your phone. It's the same Siri as everybody else, but I see kind of a future of a store like that because you don't want to have, retailers or brands are going to look for a way not to have conflict in their sales channels online and in the brick and mortar, as they say.
And I think it's important to keep in mind, too, I have a slightly unique perspective. I teach. I'm a professor at the University of North Carolina, and I teach college students 2 classes each semester. And the way that they shop is very different. So we have a generation of people that are going to rise and age through that aren't interested in shopping in the way that we shop right now. They're very much more comfortable shopping mobile, and they're also very much more comfortable buying something they haven't actually seen in person, trying it, and then sending it back and not having a problem with that. But they also are, you also mentioned, someone on the panel mentioned the social aspect. Very much a situation that is going, especially in the 20-something generation, that social experience. They want to have a great time, they're not out to just go get a pair of jeans. They're out for the entertainment perspective. And I think that's where digital signage can really play a huge part, because even though that purchase may be done with more people in the store but less product in the store, the entertainment side of it's going to come from the content that comes and drives the people that want to come in the store and be entertained in addition to shop.
Just to add to that, maybe it's nice to know, it's only nice to know that parallelization, which is a retail trend, we get a lot of more products together to get the customer to buy more, made shops bigger, and we're going to see the coming 5 or 10 years that shops are going to be smaller, but especially one retailer should have a shop to go, a very small shop in a high traffic location, will have a very large shop, a hypermarket for normally supermarkets. We'll have web shops, we'll have in-stores, we'll have mobile stores, we'll have a lot of different kinds of stores. So if you want to explore all those stores in an effective and in a very efficient way as a retailer, you should add your knowledge and come to your manufacturers and go to your traders to do that in a specific way, because a high traffic I had to go, for example, supermarket is something really different than a hypermarket. That's really different, where you park your car and everybody wants to park their car. In a high traffic location on a train station, nobody parks their car, for example. So whether you take a shopping bag of 10 kilos or you take it of 30 kilos, so that makes a hell of a difference. So retailers should really develop different kinds of shop systems, and they need your knowledge, especially your knowledge, to do that in a more effective way.
And one thing that's clear here is that this is unlike, there are probably a lot of panels in a lot of industries right now where they're all sitting around wondering how they're going to stay in business. We're in an industry that is growing and flourishing, and what we're wondering about is which direction should we go, because there's so many different ways to go. So I think we're in a unique position to be able to take advantage of that. So I think that's an exciting part of digital signage. We have time for one more quick question. Is it going to be about the Windows thing again? We're going to take a vote? Should we trust him?
No problem. No, something else. There's still the same question about doing shopping. I'm nearly 67, and you're still young. Within 5 years, I will be over 70, you will be 5 years later. A large majority of older people are coming in. They have to do the shopping. So I hope within 5 years I can do shopping at home, start my automatic car, no driver in it, to collect it at the collection point of the shop. So, because in 5 years we're that far with the intertechnology that we can drive a car without a person in it. So that will change, I believe, for me, the shopping.
Well, I think there's something to be said for that, but for example, maybe this is not a great analogy, but everybody likes to go to the movies. Everybody thinks that's an interesting experience to go to the cinema, but the video game market is outselling the cinema market significantly. It's 3 times the size of the cinema market. There's more money being spent in video games, 3 times as much money worldwide is being spent in movies, and now what's happened to video games, they've become a very social experience. So what happens is no one wants to play a video game by themselves anymore. They want to play against everybody else. So you're right. There'll be people that want to be alone and do their shopping alone, go pick up their package and go right back home. But I think most of us are interested in a social experience, and that's the great part about it, I think. Well, yeah, you're right. That's a good point. You're right. That's always going to be an issue. That's true.
I have a question, Jarek Maciej. We are talking a lot about retail. But there are other aspects of retail that we were not talking a lot about, like hospitality, like intelligent furnitures, like transportation, which is all part of one solution. How do you think this will develop the future retail, and how this will develop at opportunity itself?
Somebody want to try to tackle that in one quick answer?
You say transportation, you say retail, you say hospitality. They will integrate, I believe. So if you're at, for instance, an airport, I know where the flight is going, I know you have a boarding pass, I know what language you speak, I know if you're a frequent flyer. And based on all these facets, I can tell you where to go and purchase the item you require. I think that's something which will be integrated.
So it comes back to really the first question, having the data and then mining the data, and that's really the key to the systems that you guys are providing.
Correct. The more you know, the better you can provide an offer.
So I want to thank all the panelists for being here today. Thank you very much. It's been an honor, and I believe there are drinks, right, outside here. And thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you at the ISE show tomorrow.